Letter 138 by Charles Lamb. PM September 28, 1805. My dear Wordsworth, or Dorothy rather, for to you appertains the biggest part of this answer by right. I will not again deserve reproach by so long a silence. I have kept deluding myself with the idea that Mary would write to you, but she is so lazy, or, I believe the true state of the case, so diffident that it must revert to me as usual. Though she writes a pretty good style and has some notion of the force of words, she is not always so certain of the true orthography of them, and that and a poor handwriting, in this age of female calligraphy, often deter her where no other reason does. We have neither of us been very well for some weeks past. I am very nervous, and she most so at those times when I am. So that a merry friend, adverting to the noble consolation we were able to afford each other, denominated us not unaptly gumboil and toothache. For they used to say that a gumboil is a great relief to a toothache. We have been 2 tiny excursions this summer for 3 or 4 days each, to a place near Harrow, and to Egham, where Cooper's Hill is, and that is the total history of our rustications this year. Alas, how poor a sound to Skiddaw, and Helvellyn, and Borrowdale, and the magnificent sesquipedalian of the year 1802. Poor old Molly, to have lost her pride, that last infirmity of noble mind, and her cow. Providence need not have set her wits to such an old Molly. I am heartily sorry for her. Remember us lovingly to her, and in particular remember us to Mrs. Clarkson in the most kind manner. I hope by southwards you mean that she will be at or near London, for she is a great favorite of both of us, and we feel for her health as much as is possible for anyone to do. She is one of the friendliest, comfortablest women we know, and made our little stay at your cottage one of the pleasantest times we ever passed. We were quite strangers to her. Mr. C is with you too? Our kindest separate remembrances to him. As to our special affairs, I am looking about me. I have done nothing since the beginning of last year, when I lost my newspaper job, and having had a long idleness, I must do something, or we shall get very poor. Sometimes I think of a farce, but hitherto all schemes have gone off. An idle brag or two of an evening vaporing out of a pipe and going off in the morning. But now I have bid farewell to my sweet enemy tobacco. As you will see in my next page, I perhaps shall set soberly to work. Hang work, I wish that all the year were holiday. I am sure that indolence, indefeasible indolence, is the true state of man, and business the invention of the old teaser, who persuaded Adam's master to give him an apron and set him a hoeing. Pen and ink and clerks and desks were the refinements of this old torturer 1,000 years after, under pretense of commerce allying distant shores, promoting and diffusing knowledge, good and sea. May the Babylonish curse straight confound my stammering verse, if I can a passage see in this word perplexity, or a fit expression find, or a language to my mind. Still the phrase is wide an acre to take leave of thee, tobacco, or in any terms relate half my love or half my hate, for I hate yet love thee so, that, whichever thing I show, the plain truth will seem to be a constrained hyperbole, and the passion to proceed more from a mistress than a weed. Sooty retainer to the vine, Bacchus black servant, negro fine, sorcerer that maxed us dote upon thy begrimed complexion, and for thy pernicious sake more and greater oaths to break than reclaimed lovers take, gainst women. Thou thy siege dost lay much too in the female way, while thou suck'st the laboring breath faster than kisses, or than death. Thou in such a cloud dost bind us, that our worst foes cannot find us, and ill fortune, that would thwart us, shoots at rovers, shooting at us, while each man through thy heightening steam does like a smoking Etna seem, and all about us does express fancy and wit in richest dress, a Sicilian fruitfulness. Thou through such a mist does show us that our best friends do not know us. And for those allowed features due to reasonable creatures, likenst us to fell chimeras, monsters that, who see us, fear us, worse than Cerberus or Geryon, or, who first loved a cloud, Ixion. Bacchus we know, and we allow his tipsy rites. But what art thou? That but by reflex canst show what his deity can do, as the false Egyptian spell aped the true Hebrew miracle. Some few vapors thou mayst erase, the weak brain may serve to amaze, but to the reins and nobler heart canst nor life nor heat impart. Brother of Bacchus, later born, the old world was sure forlorn, wanting thee, that aidest more the gods' victories than before all his panthers, and the brawls of his piping bacchanals. These, as stale, we disallow or judge of thee meant, only thou his true Indian conquest art, and for ivy round his dart, the reformed god now weaves a finer thyrsus of thy leaves. Sent to match thy rich perfumed chimic art did ne'er presume through her quaint alembic strain, none so sovereign to the brain. Nature, that did in the excel, framed again no second smell. Roses, violets, but toys for the smaller sort of boys, or for greener damsels meant, thou'rt the only manly scent. stinking's tea of the stinking kind, filth of the mouth and fog of the mind. Africa that brags her foison, breeds no such prodigious poison, henbane, nightshade, both together hemlock aconite. Nay rather, plant divine of rarest virtue, blisters on the tongue would hurt you. 'Twas but in a sort I blamed thee, none e'er prospered who defamed thee. Irony all and feigned abuse such as perplexed lovers use at a need, when in despair to paint forth their fairest fair, or in part but to express that exceeding comeliness which their fancies does so strike, they borrow language of dislike, and instead of dearest miss, honey, jewel, sweetheart, bliss, and those forms of old admiring call her cockatrice and siren, basilisk, and all that's evil, witch, hyena, mermaid, devil, Ethiop wench, and blackamoor, monkey, ape, and 20 more, friendly traitress, loving foe. Not that she is truly so, but no other way they know a contentment to express. Borders so upon excess that they do not rightly wot, whether it be pain or not. Or, as men, constrained to part with what's nearest to their heart, while their sorrows at the height, lose discrimination quite, and their hasty wrath let fall, to appease their frantic gall, on the darling thing whatever, whence they feel it death to sever, though it be, as they, perforce, guiltless of the sad divorce. For I must, nor let it grieve thee, friendliest of plants, that I must leave thee for thy sake, tobacco. I would do anything but die, and but seek to extend my days long enough to sing thy praise. But as she who once has been a king's consort is a queen ever after, nor will bate any tittle of her state, though a widow or divorced, so I, from thy converse forced, the old name and style retain, a right Catherine of Spain, and a seat too mongst the joys of the blessed tobacco boys, where though I by sour physician am debarred the full fruition of thy favors, I may catch some collateral sweets, and snatch sidelong odors that give life like glances from a neighbor's wife, and still dwell in the by-places, and the suburbs of thy graces, and in thy borders take delight, an unconquered Canaanite. I wish you may think this a handsome farewell to my friendly traitress. Tobacco has been my evening comfort and my morning curse for these 5 years, and you know how difficult it is from refraining to pick one's lips even when it has become a habit. This poem is the only one which I have finished since so long as when I wrote Hester Savory. I have had it in my head to do it these 2 years, but tobacco stood in its own light when it gave me headaches that prevented my singing its praises. Now you have got it, you have got all my store, for I have absolutely not another line. No more has Mary. We have nobody about us that cares for poetry, and who will rear grapes when he shall be the sole eater? Perhaps if you encourage us to show you what we may write, we may do something now and then before we absolutely forget the quantity of an English line for want of practice. The tobacco, being a little in the way of Withers, whom Southey so much likes, perhaps you will somehow convey it to him with my kind remembrances. Then, everybody will have seen it that I wish to see it. I have sent it to Malta. I remain, dear W and D, yours truly, C. Lamb. 28th Sep. 1805. Hang work. This paragraph is the germ of the sonnet entitled Work, which Lamb wrote 14 years later. See the letter to Bernard Barton, Sept. 11, 1822. He seems always to have kept his thoughts in sight. The Farewell to Tobacco was printed in the Reflector, number Roman 4, 1811 or 1812, and then in the Works, 1818, see notes to Vol. Roman 4, of this edition. Lamb's farewell was frequently repeated, but it is a question whether he ever entirely left off smoking. Talfourd says that he did, but the late Mrs. Coe, who remembered Lamb at Widford about 1827-1830, credited him with the company of a black clay pipe. It was Lamb who, when Dr. Parr asked him how he managed to emit so much smoke, replied that he had twalled after it as other men after virtue. And Macready relates that he remarked in his presence that he wished to draw his last breath through a pipe and exhale it in a pun. Coleridge, writing to Rickman, see the Life and Letters of John Rickman, 1912, says of Lamb and smoking, were it possible to win CL from the pipe, other things would follow with comparative ease. For till he gets a pipe, I have regularly observed that he is contented with porter, and that the unconquerable appetite for spirit comes in with the tobacco, the oil of which, especially in the gluttonous manner in which he vulcanizes it, acts as an instant poison on his stomach or lungs. Hester Savory, see above.